If you had to pay to see some of Florida State's football games on TV, would you still watch them?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Brian Smith. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Seminoles, your first listen each and every day. Today's podcast is going to go over the NCAA versus House case just briefly and add some back context to it as well, because let's just get into it here. When do you know of somebody that loses money in a business deal and does not seek to find ways to make up that lost revenue? So here's the overall arching theme. $20 million or so for the Power Four schools or schools in general, 22% of their revenue, whatever it may be. You can look into it yourself. You can just type in House versus NCAA. You can find all the numbers. A lot of money these schools, and I assume TV networks in some way, will lose, because these schools are going to want more money from the networks. Everybody's pulling out of that big pocket that they're making. Rich or not, those people do not want to lose money. End of story. My experience is when prices go up for something, it eventually goes down to the consumer. Right now, with all the inflation in America, that's a pretty good example of it. But it just really doesn't happen in college football because players haven't been paid. This dealing, which is $2.8 billion, if you read the numbers, I've seen 2.7 and 2.8, is crazy enough. But think about the yearly loss, and it'll go up as TV contracts go up as well. They're going to find different ways to do it. One of the things that's been experimented with are all these apps, and I'm sure you've heard about different things like the Longhorn Network, etc. Millions of different ways that these companies, which are the institutions and the TV networks, to find ways to get little bits of money for this, that, and the other. Their podcasts and stuff is another. But the biggest thing that's been on the table, and the NFL even did it last year in the playoff, if you want to watch this game, you got to watch it on this network that you don't know anything about, and you don't have it on your cable subscription package. Would you do that if Florida State, like, I don't know which game it would be, but if they started with maybe in the ACC's package, which part of ESPN and all that, if you're going to watch the Florida State, NC State game or whichever one it is, if you could only get it by buying an app for a month or whatever, one of those ridiculous, if you don't go cancel it, they recharge your credit card deals, would you watch the Noles? Simple yes or no. If you want to comment on it, I'd love to hear your comments on YouTube. Go in there and drop a question, drop an answer, a theory, whatever you want. This is about as broad as it gets. But with this ruling, I can all but guarantee you at some point, Florida State fans, like everybody else, Clemson, Texas, everybody, they're going to try to do this. People that make money, and lots of it, do not want to hear anything about loss. The word loss is like a 4-letter word to them regarding their mother. Use your imagination there. Be smart about it. When you think about how they can do this, the easiest, it's the TV. Take away something that people really cherish. Would they find another way to do it? I say yes. I say a lot of people will still do it, and they're going to look at it in a risk-reward fashion, like this is guaranteed income. Some people will do it. Yes, there will be people that complain. Yes, there will be a ton of incoming email and people saying they're not going to donate. They're going to lose money over that. There'll be some. It's coming. But they're going to try it. Which school or schools do it first? Is it by conference? That's a good question too. I'm going to do a little buy or sell here in a bit, and this is kind of that as well. Will it be team or conference that does it first in regards to the ACC? I think it'll be the whole conference. They're going to try to get at least one team to kind of like be a test market. Maybe even it could be even this year. Who knows? But they're going to try to do something like that. And by 26, this will be the norm. That's my projection. Hope I'm wrong. I won't do it. That's just me personally. But I know most people look at their favorite teams. I don't care if it's an NFL playoff game or whatever, NBA, college basketball. I won't pay some stupid app that I won't do it. But a lot of people will, and they're going to look and see. If it fails, they'll go another route. I'm not doubting that. But even if it fails, there'll be something else. They're going to charge the consumer. I've never seen a successful company, let's be honest, the TV networks are quite successful at this, that don't find ways to come up with mitigated losses. Like they're gonna find a way to mitigate. Like they're gonna get you on the back end of the bookstore, 50 cents here. They're gonna nickel and dime you to try to make you think that you're not paying more, but you are. And then this is the straight direct way. So how do you find ways to make that better for you? Obviously, you can still go to the games. Obviously, there are ways you can do it by having watch parties. Somebody gets the app in your neighborhood. Maybe you live on the east side of Tallahassee and you're 15 minutes from the stadium, but you can't go that weekend. You've got responsibilities at work. So you're going to get there at maybe halftime, but your buddy 2 doors down is getting it. You and 5 other people go and watch it. That's something people will do. That happens all the time. I know a bunch of people. I think it was the Bills-Chiefs game or whatever last. I can't remember. But in the playoff, the NFL did. They put that on some weird channel, and it's like we couldn't even. Like I was at a restaurant. I was traveling at the time. I couldn't even see a good game. I'm not a fan of either team, but it was a good game. I wanted to see it. I couldn't. That was very frustrating. The NFL, to me, of all places, has the least reason to do. I mean, give me a break. It's bad enough that college athletics, I'm saying, is going to get ready to do it. But the NFL, really? I know I'm getting off tangent here, but that drove me nuts. I'm like, really? You guys have it pretty good here. Shut up and go away. The point is still the same, though. How else do you think Florida State or any other school would look to make up for it? Obviously, they're going to bug you to death for donations. If you've ever donated, if you're a grad, businesses, etc., they will not accept loss. I'm telling you, they're not going to. So that's something to think about before we go into buy or sell here. And if you want to add to it something else you think, I'd be curious. I think you're going to see seat licensing and stuff like that go up. I know certain schools, I won't go into specifics, but some of the places like to get good seats, you're talking about lump sum, $30,000 and $40,000 to get lump sum just for the seat licensing, not to buy your season tickets. That's something else they'll do too. And if that happens, it gets to the point where it's not really any different than straight up pro sports. And I know a lot of my friends, like for their NFL teams, they just can't afford to take their families anyway. So seat licensing is like, forget it. It's like buying a car, like brand new car. That's pretty rough. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit more in this regard. We're going to talk some buy or sell, talk a little bit of football in regards to Florida State, the defense specifically. I want to talk a little bit about that. Also going to get into a few things in regards to what could Florida State be the best in the nation at? Because I think there's multiple things in that area. Florida State's defense in particular, I've mentioned several times, the secondary. There's a great stat that I'm surprised I didn't bring up earlier this year on this channel, but I found one that Florida State was number 1 in the nation, and I think they have a chance to do it again. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right. This is kind of fun for me. I've gotten into this because a buddy of mine likes doing some of these on his podcast. And it's a way to kind of bring up stats and different concepts, different players, depth charts, schedule, anything you want, and just put your mind to the task. You can answer these any way you want. And again, I'd love it if you would go out there and comment on YouTube. If you want to ask questions for future buy or sell episodes or segments, fire away. Anything you put on YouTube, I'll grab it. I look at all the comments on there. Happy to do it. You might even bring up something about an area that you want discussed, recruiting, whatever it is. I'm open-ended on it. So here we go. The question that the comment that I made towards the end a few moments ago before the eBay commentary. Last year, Florida State was number one in the nation. I didn't know this in passes defended or passes broken up, meaning you physically touch the football and disrupt the pass from getting to its intended offensive target. Here's the key. They were 10 ahead of number two, 80 to 70. That's a big jump. I figured it'd be like 80 to 78 or something. No, it was by 10. So Florida State secondary, they lose Greedy. I get that. He's a really good player, but you still got Ventrell. I even asked myself this going into this show, which is the best DB? I don't know. That's a good problem to have because I think they have, let me count here. I'm going to say at least 3 guys off this year's starting unit that will play in the NFL in some capacity. Let me pull it up, Florida State's secondary. But at the same time, I remember talking to one of my buddies. I'm like, I'm not even sure, 100% sure on the starting lineup for the whole season because they got some younger guys that are getting better that could work their way into the lineup. Now, Thomas, I think, is the most physically gifted. That doesn't mean he's the best all the time. You could make an argument for Ventrell Cypress or a Little, et cetera, because he came in and beat out a player that ends up transferring. That was a starter last year. Jabril Rawls is a guy that has a lot of talent. He's a long kid. I know him. He's from the Pensacola area. Conrad Hussey, et cetera. They've got guys, man. I'm not really sure if Florida State's going to be hurting anywhere. I mean, Quindarius Jones is a guy I really like. Can he push somebody like Thomas or Cypress? Maybe, but they're loaded. So first question, will Florida State A lead the NCAA in the pass breakup category? You buying or selling that? I'm buying it. And second, which, just for fun here, which FSU DB leads the unit in pass breakups this year? That one might even be harder because, again, I expect like Thomas is probably the most physically gifted because of his length and all that stuff. But they have so many guys. Like Thomas will probably have a lot of guys not throw at him. And I'll talk about the quarterbacks in a second. FSU's schedule this year, digging into it, is ridiculously hard in terms of the quarterbacks they go against. It is a veteran group. That is a concern. But if you're going to go up against it, this is the year to do it, this secondary. You got a good pass rush, too. Which guy ends up being the leader in breakups? I'm going to go with Ventrell Cypress just for fun because I think teams will avoid Thomas a little bit and Ventrell's still a little more experienced. He's a redshirt senior, fifth-year guy. You know, he's seen about everything, played at Virginia, then came to Florida State last year, mixed in well. And I also think that they're just going to be in a situation where Thomas will be on an island a little bit more and teams will avoid him. Maybe they can play a little decoy on whether they're going to double guys to the other side, to the broad side of the field. I don't know. I just think Ventrell has a great chance at it. If you don't want to go with him, I mean, it could be other guys like somebody like Devontae Brown, who's also a fifth-year senior, the transfer from Miami. He played at UCF his first 3 years. As a free safety, it's a possibility there too. Lots of different things could happen. One last note on it. The good news is with all these players as possibilities, again, Florida State has depth. There's one thing you can say about Florida State for sure. The secondary has a lot of guys, so if they get some bumps and bruises, they'll be able to sustain it better. And if you don't have top-end secondaries, you're not sniffing the playoff or doing anything in it once you reach it. Let's talk a little bit about the situation with Florida State's schedule. 2 questions, buy or sell. Number one, just overall, do you think the 24 schedule is harder than 23? It's debatable. I'm going to say yes because they added a road game at Notre Dame. I mean, it's small point there. The Miami game's on the road. Florida's at home, but Florida's not that good. That doesn't really change anything. Clemson's at home. And playing at Clemson last year was hard. Florida State hadn't won there in a long time. But playing at Notre Dame, 2nd of November, I hate the timing of the game for Florida State. Anything past about the 15th of October in South Bend, it could be snowing, raining sideways, 35 degrees. It could be all kinds of things, all bad for Florida State. I think that game's the most difficult on the schedule, and I think it'll make it slightly more difficult. But are you buying or selling it? And if you are, again, please comment on YouTube. Just looking at some of the list here. It's not like it's by a landslide. It's not like the schedule is unbelievably easier or more difficult. But the games that, a couple just for fun here, the SMU game is on the road. That game is before they play Clemson. I hate that timing. That's playing a road game before a big conference game sucks, but it is what it is. I don't think anything else is really awkward. The Miami game, you're always going to be up for that regardless, home or away. Florida, same thing. So, again, the Notre Dame game and to a certain degree the SMU game, the only ones that kind of give me pause. Georgia Tech being overseas, both teams got to do it. So that's kind of neutral. But it is an odd start, and it's on the 24th of August. So the Noles will get an earlier start to their fall camp. The other parts of this, and this is what today before I did the show, that I researched more than anything. Does Florida State's schedule at any point during your lifetime that you can think of play more teams with quality quarterbacks? Meaning, you can define this how you want. It's buy or sell, yes or no on this, however you want to say it. Quarterbacks that were really good last year or really talented, kind of upcoming, whatever. Looking at Florida State's schedule, I was going through it earlier. And I was trying to look at it from a really positive way. -2, like what are the good sides of this? What are the bad sides to this? The one thing that I don't think a lot of people know, like there's a couple of NFL guys on here that aren't for traditionally dominant programs. Seth Hennigan, for instance, plays for Memphis. Of course, that's the school that Norvell came from. He threw for over 3,800 yards last year. Preston Stone is one of, if not the best quarterback in the ACC based on what he's done. He's going to be a junior. He's a kid that's from the greater Dallas area, plays at SMU. He had, Stone last year, 3,197 yards, 28 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. And by the way, Hennigan, 38, 83, 32 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. You've got Malik Murphy that transferred to Duke from Texas, the big arm kid. You got a cannon. You've got, obviously, kid some of you might even know, Fernando Mendoza. He's a kid that played down at Columbus and Miami. He starts for Cal as a freshman last year. He's coming back. You've got Riley Leonard at Notre Dame. You got Cam Ward at Miami. You got a 60-year senior that's at Florida. It's a really unique schedule. You don't play NC State. You don't play Louisville in the regular season. Those are tough teams. But the quarterbacks you're playing, all those, have you come across a schedule that you can think of where Florida State definitively played a more difficult group of starting quarterbacks? I can't think of one. So I'm going to sell that it's an easier schedule than any other. When I first started looking at this, because somebody else, I got this idea from another pod. I can't remember which one it is, but it's a great idea. Look at quarterbacks. I thought, well, I'm gonna buy that. This is not as difficult as some others. I'm going to sell that. I don't remember one. If somebody has it, I'd be curious. I'd like to be wrong, just to hear what it was and which guys you think that are there. Because again, this is pretty rough. Not many people are going to go that route. So keep that in mind, because quarterback play, as we always talk about on this show, if you don't have it, you're in trouble. Florida State's going to have to score some points this year. And to that point, I also want to bring up this stat. Last year, Florida State gave up 19.3 points a game. All right, that's pretty good. They were topped. I think they were number 11 in the country, something like that. Number 18. They were second in the ACC. The first team was actually Duke. They played really well and played above their heads in some ways, but they gave up 19. So Florida State gives up 19.3. Buy or sell that the Noles will give up the same or fewer in 2024 of 19.3. It's a really debatable question, because I still think Florida State's going to have a really good defense. For me, the only reason, and this is why I did this question in this order, that I'll say no, it's the quarterbacks they're playing that I just went over. You got to score to win in today's era of college football. Even like Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ohio State, you look at playoff games recently, the key to the end of the game is quarterbacks are slinging it. You got to get to that quarterback because they're going to complete passes. You're gonna see that for the most part. There's an exception to the rule here or there, but by and large, they're going to score at the end of the game. You don't want to be up 3 points. The other team got 2 minutes in the ball. Bad news. I think Florida State will give up around 21, but I think everybody's average will pretty much go up for the most part, barring just their schedule going down. I think Florida State's schedule is similar, or maybe slightly more difficult, but it's just the quarterbacks are what give me the biggest pause. Here's the other question that I'm going to talk about in a second. Total defense. There's a lot of ways to look at it. And quite honestly, I think Florida State's overall will be better, but not necessarily statistically. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make sure you switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for your everyday to bring you the largest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. So again, total defense is a really good stat that's been around forever. It's just how many yards did you give rushing and passing? Florida State is in a scenario where they quite honestly don't have a whole lot that they should be complaining about because they got a lot of players coming back, and it's just really, really easy, to be honest with you, for them to reload. I mean, they got defensive ends, they got transfers, they got size of detail. They should be good. Linebacker is not as deep as they necessarily like, but it's a lot better than it was before the spring. Like things have kind of sorted themselves up. They had a good spring. Some younger guys. So they got a chance, right? But again, the quarterbacks there, are they going to be better than a total of 331.9 yards per game? I say again, no. Everything I think for everybody's going to go up a little bit. But here's the caveat. If you want to answer this in either way, it's up to you. Are they going to be better situationally? Meaning big game moments. That's the only thing that really matters. If you give up a bunch of yards at the end of a game against a team you're going to beat the bejesus out of, nobody cares. Now, the coaches get mad and all that, but it doesn't change your win-loss record. It doesn't. So how do you want to go about it? It's up to you if you want to answer on YouTube. For me, I'm just going to answer it both ways. They'll go up in numbers, but I think the experience and everybody with the cohesiveness that Florida State has will actually do a little bit better in the big game situations that you might think, because they're going to get challenged in every game. They're going up against some dudes at quarterback, some NFL level talents, and some guys who at least go to NFL training camps, etc. If you can do that, you're pretty darn good. I think overall, situationally, Florida State will be better. Sacks will still be around the same. They'll give or take 40 sacks. I've talked about that earlier last week. And I also think they'll either lead the nation in pass breakups or be right there. And it'll be really hard to attack any one point in the secondary. When teams got to throw, Florida State's got to lead at the end. That's an important point. Keep that in mind. Before I go on any further, by the way, if there's something else that you would like to talk about with the pass defense, like I think I've covered it in about every possible manner, please let me know. But like, I am just really impressed with what they have in the back end of Florida State's secondary. All right, the last thing that I want to talk about here, we're getting into some kind of this fun stuff. Which player on Florida State's team leads them in interceptions? Most likely it's a DB, but it could be like somebody like DJ Lundy, fifth-year senior. That could be an interesting pick, something like that. I know this isn't really a buy or sell question, but it's just kind of fun. I'm always curious about interceptions because those plays just change games. The momentum shifts so much. Which player leads the team in interceptions? Or if you want buy or sell any player you want to talk about it, the guy I've got picked is Cypress, because I think teams will, again, they're going to go away from Thomas a little bit more. He's a bigger, rangier guy. I could be wrong. Maybe it's the other way around because he's singled up. But I'm going with Cypress. I think he'll get 3 or 4 picks this year. And I think Florida State will have a lot of guys with 1 or 2 because they're going to rotate DBs because they have so many good players. You know, a kid like Hussey might end up being the leading interception guy, being the first player off the bench. It wouldn't shock me. Anything's possible. He could also play multiple roles too for Florida State. With that, name a team that has more DB depth than Florida State, just for fun in your head. If you follow anybody else, trust me, I follow a ton of teams. I do not know one that has quite as much depth overall. There are a few that are close, but I like Florida State's the best in college football. Which is the most important game in the ACC race is something that gets talked about before each season. So with that buy or sell, the Clemson at Florida State game dictates who wins the league. Buy or sell, the Clemson at Florida State game dictates the winner of the Atlantic Coast Conference before the ACC title game, the regular season. if you will. I would say there's at least a 50% chance of that, and I'm going to buy it because Clemson is going to be looking for redemption. Everybody was down on them. I don't think they're as good as Florida State. A few of my buddies think that Clemson's going to win the league, and guys that are not Clemson fans, like not Clemson fans at all, but they think Clemson's going to be right there and win the league. I do not. I think that Miami, Louisville, who am I miss? Oh, NC State, all of those teams have a shot, and it's going to be muddled. I don't think anybody's going to go undefeated. You could throw in Virginia Tech as another team that can muddle it up. They're going to have offense. They're going to score. And they got some good pass rushers and some good corners. ACC is going to be a little bit better than people think. And don't forget about Georgia Tech. They can score. The defense, not very good, but they could score. So anybody that plays them can have some issues. I still think that the defenses and the coaching at Florida State and Clemson will keep them in the combination at the top of the league. You got to prove to me that Mario Cristobal can win big games. You got to prove to me that Louisville can consistently. I don't know what to think of it. I have no way to rate Louisville. This is just me talking, but take it however you want. I have no way to know what do they got? 31 transfers, something like that? 29? I don't know what it is. Can you take that many and be cohesive year to year? I mean, every now and then you can, but Brom is probably frustrated. They can't get enough of the kids that he wants out of the high school ranks. They wouldn't be doing this if they didn't have to. But I think that Louisville is a possibility here or there, but I'm just not buying them being great. But they're still a team that can win a game somewhere and really cause somebody else issues. Brass tacks, though, I'm going, yes, I'm going to buy Florida State hosting Clemson is the most important game in the league. I'm curious what other people think. And if there's another one you think's close, go ahead and fire away. What would it be? Whether it's Florida State, Miami, or anything else, I'm curious. Last question for today's show. Besides pass breakups, we already talked about that. Will Florida State's defense, buy or sell, be top 5 in the nation in any category? You pick it. Anything you can think of. Sacks, interception, whatever you want. If you want to list them, that's fine. That's just for fun. You want to answer on YouTube for Locked On Seminoles? Go ahead and knock yourself out. I'm curious as to what you think because it's a really interesting topic because I think there's a couple of different ones they could. Sacks is a possibility. Pass breakups, obviously. Interceptions is a possibility. You could go, the most important to me, points per game allowed. Any of those are possible. I'm going to buy because I think it'll actually be 2 or more. You just call me an optimist, but I think Florida State's defense with all the players they have coming back, that's a legitimate possibility. And if they didn't get at least one, I would be surprised. So with that, I'm going to wrap today's show up. Thank you once again for making this your first listen each and every day. The Locked On Podcast Network is a great place for me to come and have a good time. Hope you all enjoy it. Please like and subscribe to this channel, share, rate, and review. I will talk to you again very soon. This has been Locked On Seminoles.